Hi everyone, and welcome to my poster. My name is Lindsay Plater. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Guelph in Ontario, Canada, and today I'll be presenting some of my research entitled Visual Working Memory and Long-Term Memory Attentional Control Settings. Can we maintain both simultaneously? I've recorded this short walkthrough. You're also more than welcome to come speak to me in person or email me at lplater@uoguelph.ca. Alright, jumping right into the background. Observers can adopt attentional control settings to guide attention to what they are looking for. If I tell you to look for green, objects in your environment that are green will jump out to you. Objects that are not green will not jump out at you. Importantly, this can be accomplished using either visual working memory or long-term memory. So I can make you look for a color on every trial, or I can make you look for 10 complex visual objects or pictures on every trial, and regardless, only what you are looking for will capture your attention. So we know that this can be done using either of these memory systems. Also importantly, the capture of visual attention, as indicated by a difference in reaction times, is contingent or dependent on the item matching what the observer is looking for. So this graph is a little bit simplified, but any item that is matching what you're looking for will produce this difference in reaction times that we call a cueing effect, but items that you're not looking for will not capture attention and not produce this cueing effect. We'll get back to that later. So our question is, can a visual working memory attentional control setting and a long-term memory attentional control setting be used simultaneously or at the same time in order to guide attention? Moving on to the methods, we have two parts to our methods. The first part is the memory training. Participants learn a list of 10 randomly selected complex visual objects or pictures. They learn these items one at a time. Then they have to do a training phase where they report the studied image. They're shown 2 objects and they have to say which of those objects they've previously studied. Participants have to get 80% accuracy or higher in order to move on to the next part of the methods. The second and most important part of the methods is our attention cueing task. This is where we determine what kinds of things capture attention. So here participants have to search for a color that appears at the beginning of each trial. And importantly, that color changes on every trial in order to induce the visual working memory attentional control setting. At the same time, participants also have to search for the 10 objects they studied at the beginning of the experiment, and that forms the long-term memory attentional control setting. There is a cue that appears just before the target screen, and participants are told to ignore the cue as it will never help them do the task, and it's actually not predictive of where their target will later appear. What participants are doing on this task is on the memory probe screen, 2 objects will appear, or 2 colors will appear. If 2 objects appear, they have to say which of these 2 things was one of the 10 objects you studied at the beginning of the experiment. Here the correct answer is the apple, so they would respond that the line on top of the apple is a vertical line. If 2 colors appear, they have to say which of these 2 colors appeared at the beginning of this trial. In this case, the correct answer is again, the vertical line is on top of the blue object from the beginning of the trial. So, in the attention cueing task, participants have to respond which of these things is the studied color or object. We can use this task to determine what has formed an attentional control setting and has captured attention. So when we move to the results, what we can do is we can actually look at reaction times on the task. So what was their reaction time to the memory probe or the target item? And we have a couple of different things to notice here. We have matching items, and this is actually if the cue matches one of the things they're looking for or not. We also have whether it's a color trial or an object trial, so the visual working memory or the long-term memory attentional control set. And the last part we have is whether it is a cued target or an uncued target. And what this means is cued is the cue and the target appear at the same location. Uncued means the cue and the target appear at different locations. And importantly, we can, in our expected results graph up here, look at cued and uncued for matching items where we expect to see that cueing effect, and compare that to cued and uncued items at the non-matching location where we do not expect to see a cueing effect. Let's jump back to the results. Experiment 1 is a University of Guelph undergraduate population. These are mostly female students. What we found is contingent capture by those visual working memory attentional control set colors, and also contingent capture by those long-term memory attentional control set objects. So this is showing us that participants have formed a visual working memory and a long-term memory attentional control setting in order to guide attentional capture. One of our p-values was a little bit weak, so we wanted to run another experiment to try to replicate this. We wanted to have a bigger sample. So we moved to prolific.org, where you can get data really, really quickly, and we got female and male data. The overall data is not on this poster, but we found a big lot of nothing, which was really confusing until we broke it down by sex. And what we found was sex differences. The females from our prolific data roughly approximate the same thing that we found in our experiment 1 sample, but the males showed no attentional capture, which is very different from what we expected. Moving quickly to our discussion. Some observers can use both a visual working memory attentional control setting and a long-term memory attentional control setting simultaneously in order to guide visual spatial attentional capture. We say that visual working memory and long-term memory attentional control settings likely operate independently using separate resources. If they use the same attentional or memory resources, it would likely not be possible for both types of representations to bias attentional capture at the same time. And the last takeaway that we have is previous attentional control setting research uses mostly female participants. But because we found sex differences in experiment 2, it's important that future research actually includes male participants in order to see whether these results generalize to all kinds of samples. That's everything I have for you today. Feel free to drop by my live presentation if you have any questions or comments, or shoot me an email at lplater@uoguelph.ca. Thank you.